Hi everyone, we're Mimicker, here to introduce all kinds of knowledge, even the stuff we didn't know about.
Yeah, and today we are getting into something that honestly, well, it feels like it belongs straight in a sci-fi movie.
It really does. So welcome to this installment of I Know You Don't Know. Today, based on the data we collect from this just powering stack of recent physics papers, academic journals, and market reports, we're exploring a breakthrough that kind of completely flips our understanding of reality.
Great. It totally upends what we think we know about energy.
Exactly. It's a true I know you don't know moment regarding the future of power.
Ah.
We are talking about the quantum battery. And to start, I want you, the listener, to just imagine a world where the larger your battery is, the faster it charges.
Which is, I mean, it's a premise that challenges literally everything we've come to accept about how power works in our daily lives.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, we spend so much of our modern existence just tethered to charging cables. We're constantly anxiously watching that little battery icon slowly tick up from 1% to 2%.
Yeah, it dictates our whole day.
It does. It dictates our schedules, our movement, our anxiety levels. I mean, we've deeply internalized the idea that moving energy simply takes time.
We really have.
Yeah.
Like you plug in a pair of wireless earbuds, and they're done in maybe 20 minutes. But you plug in an electric vehicle, and you're going to be sitting at that charging station for a good chunk of the afternoon.
Right, because of basic volume.
Exactly. Normally, a larger bucket takes longer to fill. That's just how the physical world works. But based on the data we collect, it sounds like you're saying that in the quantum world, adding more drops of water to the bucket somehow makes the hose spray exponentially wider and faster.
Yeah, you've hit on the exact paradox that makes this so revolutionary. So the scaling law is entirely inverted here.
Inverted. Okay, let's unpack that.
Well, with our current lithium-ion batteries, charge times scale proportionally with size. And that's because the chemical cells charge independently. More capacity simply equals more time. But with quantum batteries, they scale inversely with size. So the larger you make the quantum system, the more cells you add, the faster the entire system can actually absorb the energy.
That is just wild to wrap your head around. But this isn't just theoretical math on chalkboard anymore, right?
No, not at all.
Right, because to understand how a bigger battery charges faster, we have to look at an actual physical experiment that happened. So the date is March 2026. The location is an Australian laboratory, specifically a CSIRO lab down in Melbourne, working with some researchers from RMIT and the University of Melbourne.
Yeah, this is a huge milestone.
And a scientist named James Quach and his team managed to do something completely unprecedented. They zap-charged a microscopic device with a laser.
Right, and this device, it was incredibly specific. It was a multi-layer organic microcavity, which is much, much smaller than a grain of salt.
Wow, okay, so microscopic.
Literally microscopic. And inside this cavity, they placed a fluorescent substance called Lumigen F orange dye. And then they sandwiched this dye between two highly reflective mirrors.
Okay, a microscopic dye sandwich.
Exactly, a microscopic mirrored sandwich. So when Quach fired a laser at this tiny thing, it completed a full charge, store, and discharge cycle in femtoseconds.
Okay, wait, let's give that femtosecond measurement some scale for the listener, because it's really hard to truly grasp that kind of number.
Oh, it's basically unimaginable.
Right, because a femtosecond is 1 quadrillionth of a second. To put that in perspective for you, 1 femtosecond is to 1 second. 1 second is to roughly 32 million years.
It is just an unfathomably tiny slice of time.
Yeah. And then the storage phase, the actual time the battery held onto that energy, lasted for microseconds.
And, while a microsecond still sounds completely instantaneous to human perception, in the context of this specific quantum experiment, it is a massive duration.
Because it's compared to the femtoseconds.
Exactly. That storage time is 6 orders of magnitude longer than the time it took to actually charge it. It was really the first time a quantum battery had completed a full cycle of taking energy in, holding it, and letting it go.
Which is why they got that landmark publication in Light, Science and Application.
Top-tier journal. It was a huge deal.
Okay, so we know the Melbourne team actually pulled this off, but the underlying mechanism is what we really need to unpack here. Why exactly does a larger quantum system charge faster?
Well, for that, our sources point back to a 2013 theoretical paper. and then even further back to a concept from 1954.
Right. Let's go back to 2013 first.
So the foundation of this inverted scaling law requires us to look at quantum entanglement. Back in 2013, you had these theoretical physicists, Robert Alicky and Mark Fans, and they proposed applying the rules of entanglement to an energy storage device.
Okay.
Because in a classical smartphone battery, the individual chemical cells are isolated, right? They don't know or care what the cell right next to them is doing.
They're just doing their own thing.
Right. But Aki and Fans realized that in a quantum battery, the cells could be entangled, meaning they share a single quantum state, which allows for collective charging. They essentially act as a unified system.
And this collective action, based on the papers, it relies on a mechanism called superabsorption, which is the thing that traces back to a discovery by the American physicist Robert Dicke in 1954.
Yeah, Robert Dicke, he observed something called superradiance.
Right, superradiance.
And that's really the crucial mechanism to understand here. Dicke realized that if you have a specific number of atoms, let's just call that number n, and they're all placed into the exact same quantum state, they don't just emit light at a normal additive rate.
Meaning 1 + 1 + 1.
Right, they don't do that. They actually emit light at a rate proportional to the square of their number. So it scales at n squared.
Okay, so if you have 10 atoms, they don't just emit 10 times the light, they emit 100 times the light.
Exactly.
And if you have 1,000 atoms, you're looking at 1,000,000 times the light. It just scales exponentially.
Yeah, I mean, think of a crowd of people all shouting at the exact same moment. In classical physics, you just add their voices together to get the total volume. But in this quantum state, the volume squares itself. And superabsorption is simply the exact reverse of superradiance. So if molecules can collectively emit photons at an n squared rate, theoretically, they can absorb photons at an n squared rate.
Okay, so the more molecules you entangle, the faster the energy is absorbed.
You've got it.
I do have to push back on the reality of that, though, because getting random molecules to absorb light at the exact same split second, it sounds physically impossible outside of a math equation.
It is incredibly difficult, yeah.
Like, going back to your analogy, it sounds like trying to get a crowded stadium of thousands of people to inhale at the exact same millisecond. I mean, someone is going to cough, someone is going to breathe early, someone gets distracted. How do you actually force that kind of flawless synchronization at a molecular level?
No, your skepticism points directly to why superabsorption is so vastly more difficult to achieve than superradiance.
Because emitting is easier.
Way easier. With superradiance, you just excite a bunch of atoms and let them naturally decay. They'll drop their energy on their own time. But superabsorption requires forcing those molecules into an incredibly tightly controlled environment.
Oh, okay.
And that really was the genius of the CSIRO team in Melbourne.
So how do they do it? How do they force the stadium of people to inhale at the exact same time?
Well, they engineered a condition known as strong coupling within that tiny mirrored microcavity we talked about earlier. By trapping the light and the Lumigen-F dye in that impossibly tight space between the mirrors, they created an environment where the dye molecules are forced to abandon their individual behavior.
Oh, interesting. So they lose their individuality.
They literally lose their individual identities. They start acting like a highly trained, single-minded photon army.
Wow.
So when the laser enters the cavity, this strong coupling forces all the molecules to absorb the energy in perfect, instantaneous synchronicity. It's a group battle, not a one-by-one process.
Now, here's where the data we collect gets genuinely mind-bending. Because synchronizing an army of molecules to absorb light instantly is strange enough.
Yeah.
But researchers in Japan actually found a way to increase the charging efficiency of these batteries by literally bending the rules of cause and effect.
Yeah, the standard rules of time and sequence just don't apply when you drill down to this level.
Right. So in 2023, a research team from Tokyo University published a study in Physical Review Letters. And they utilized this completely bizarre quantum effect known as indefinite causal order, or ICO.
Yeah, indefinite causal order.
Okay, let's ground this for the listener. In our normal classical world, things happen in a strict sequence. Event A happens, then event B happens. If you have two chargers, you use charger A, then you move to charger B. The sequence is absolute.
But the quantum realm does not respect that absolute sequence.
Because of course it doesn't.
Right. Using indefinite causal order, the charging system can actually exist in a superposition of multiple sequences simultaneously.
Wait, simultaneously?
Yeah, the quantum state allows the sequence of charger A, then charger B to happen at the exact same time as the reverse sequence of charger B, then charger A.
Okay, so it's like eating your dessert before dinner, And eating your dinner before dessert at the exact same time in two overlapping timelines just to maximize your total calorie intake.
Huh. I mean, that analogy actually highlights the core benefit here, which is efficiency.
How so?
Well, let's look at why simultaneous timelines actually save energy. In classical physics, every time you move energy from one state to another, you pay a tax in the form of heat. This is thermodynamic entropy.
That's like how your phone gets hot when it charges.
Exactly. So if you charge A, then B, you pay the tax twice. But by existing in a superposition of both sequences at once, the overlapping quantum waves can be engineered to destructively interfere with each other.
Wait, let me make sure I had this right. They are using quantum wave interference to cancel out the heat loss.
Yes. That is the fundamental shift here. The overlapping timelines cause their thermodynamic heat tax to partially cancel itself out. So the battery charges fully, but the entropy generated is significantly reduced.
That is just brilliant.
It is. The Tokyo University researchers proved that by bypassing the classical laws of cause and effect, you actually use less energy to charge a larger battery.
So we have a battery that charges instantly because the molecules are entangled in strong coupling. And it uses less energy because it exists in multiple sequences at once to cancel out the heat loss.
Right.
This sounds like the ultimate power source. But there's a catch, isn't there? Because if a battery can absorb energy instantly, wouldn't it also leak that energy instantly? It sounds like we're pouring water into a bucket that doesn't have a bottom.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. This is known as the self-discharge problem, and honestly, it was the fatal flaw that threatened to keep quantum batteries permanently trapped as just a laboratory curiosity.
Because it wouldn't be useful in the real world.
Right, because the double-edged sword of superradiance and superabsorption means the same mechanism allowing near-instant energy intake also causes near-instant energy release. The molecules are incredibly efficient at taking photons in, so naturally they are equally efficient at spitting them back out.
So all this brilliant physics is basically useless if the battery goes dead a microsecond after you charge it.
Exactly.
But our sources highlight a massive 2025 breakthrough regarding this. It was from a joint team at RIKEN, which is Japan's National Research Institute, and Hwasong University of Science and Technology. They proposed the topological quantum battery.
Yes, topology.
Now, I remember topology from math class. It's the math of shapes, right? Like
Yeah.
that old joke that to a topologist, a coffee cup and a donut are mathematically identical because they both have exactly one hole.
That's the one. And the defining feature of topological properties is their extreme robustness.
Robust.
Yeah, you can deform an object, twist it, compress it, but as long as you don't actually tear it, its fundamental topological nature remains unchanged. It is structurally immune to minor physical disturbances.
So applying the math of shapes to a battery leak, I mean, does that mean they found a mathematical way to build a one-way door for the photons?
That is actually a really brilliant way to visualize it. Think of a normal classical wire like a smooth pipe. Energy can flow forward, but if it hits an imperfection in the pipe, it can easily splash or scatter backward.
Right.
But the RIKEN team utilized photon waveguides, which are microscopic tracks that guide light, and they designed them with very specific topological properties. So a topological waveguide operates much more like a subway turnstile.
Oh, I see. So the light can only push through in one direction.
Exactly. Because of the physical geometry built into the microscopic track, the light waves can only exist in what's called an edge state, moving forward. If the photon encounters a flaw or tries to reverse direction, the mathematics of the shape dictate that the backward traveling wave simply cannot exist.
It just cancels itself out.
It does. The energy is forced to maneuver around the obstacle and keep moving forward into the storage state.
So they gave the battery this invisible mathematical armor against energy dissipation. The energy goes in during the superabsorption phase, but that mathematical turnstile prevents it from radiating back out.
And even more incredibly, the RIKEN team found that under certain controlled conditions, this topological structure turns dissipation into an advantage.
Wait, really? How?
Instead of leaking power, the interaction with the environment actually temporarily enhances the charging power. It's just an incredibly elegant solution to a brutally complex problem.
Wow. Okay, so we have the speed from superabsorption, we have the thermodynamic efficiency from indefinite causal order, and now we have the topological armor to actually hold the charge. So the most obvious question for you listening right now is, why isn't this technology sitting in your driveway today?
Well, unfortunately, it comes down to a staggering gap in physical scale.
The size.
Yeah. The laboratory prototype we discussed, the one in Melbourne that proved it all worked, holds its energy for microseconds. A commercial smartphone needs to hold energy for hours or days. The gap between what the prototype can do and what consumer electronics require is roughly 1 million to 1 trillion times apart.
1 trillion times apart. That's not just a hurdle. That's an entirely different galaxy of engineering.
It really is.
Scaling this up from a microscopic lab experiment to a commercial grid isn't just a materials engineering problem. It requires a completely different way of thinking. And I guess it's no surprise that the guy leading this charge at CSIRO, James Quach, actually came from entirely outside the physics world.
Yeah, his career trajectory is super fascinating. James Quach didn't actually start in quantum physics. He holds degrees in computer science, engineering, and business.
Really? Business?
Yeah, he spent time working as a management consultant on a very traditional corporate path before he completely pivoted. He went back, got his PhD, traveled the world as a researcher, and eventually became the chief scientist for quantum science and technology at CSIRO.
Wow.
And now he oversees not just quantum batteries, but quantum robotics as well.
I love that. It proves that sometimes the biggest revolutions require outsiders who just aren't afraid to ask completely different questions. I mean, an ex-management consultant walks into a physics lab and asks, what if the battery charges faster when it's bigger? And suddenly we are mapping a new era in energy.
Yeah, and the market is definitely taking notice.
Yep.
ECC Research recently published a report projecting that the global quantum battery market will reach $65.4 million by 2030.
Which is pretty fast.
Yeah.
But the initial commercial applications won't be electric vehicles, right?
No. The first deployment will almost certainly be inside quantum computers.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right, because those systems already operate in hyper-controlled, super-cold environments, and they require highly precise, microscopic, lightning-fast bursts of power to manage their qubits. So the environment is already perfectly suited for the technology's current tiny scale.
But let's look at the horizon for everyday applications, for the listener.
Yeah.
Even if it takes decades to scale this up, and let's remember, traditional lithium-ion batteries took from the 1970s until their commercial release in 1991 to become a reality. What does a fully realized quantum-powered world actually look like?
Well, to understand that future, we have to recognize the hard limits of our present. Lithium-ion batteries are hitting a chemical ceiling.
They can only do so much.
Right. Currently, the most advanced ones peak around 275 watt-hours per kilogram. Solid-state batteries might push that slightly higher, but chemistry has a hard limit. Quantum batteries, on the other hand, operate on that inverted scaling law we discussed. The bigger they are, the more molecules entangled, the better they perform.
Okay, let's run a thought experiment. It's the year 2036. The trillion-scale gap has been bridged. The topological turnstiles are perfectly integrated. You pull your electric vehicle into a charging station.
Okay, picture this. You don't grab a heavy, liquid-cooled cable. A laser array under the car targets the quantum battery module, and in 3 seconds, literally before you can even unbuckle your seatbelt, your vehicle is fully charged.
That is insane. And the implications for consumer electronics and home infrastructure have to be just as profound.
Oh, absolutely. Your smartphone wouldn't need a charging port. A localized laser emitter integrated into the ceiling of your living room could provide truly wireless, room-scale charging instantly as you walk through the door.
And what happens when we apply that to the global power grid?
The grid might actually be the most vital application of all. Right now, solar panels on your roof gather energy during the day. But storing that energy in standard lithium batteries means you lose a significant percentage to heat and chemical resistance.
Right.
They operate at roughly an 85 to 90% round-trip efficiency. Quantum batteries could store that solar power with near-perfect efficiency, jumping straight to the theoretical limit and holding massive amounts of power for an entire neighborhood without bleeding it away.
It completely rewrites the infrastructure of our daily lives and just the way human beings interact with energy in general.
It does. And, this raises a crucial reflection for you to consider as we close this out.
Yeah.
If we reach a point where all of our devices, our cars, our homes can recharge in essentially 3 seconds, how much of our modern daily rhythm is currently dictated by simply waiting for things to recharge?
Oh, I never thought of it that way.
Right. Think about our breaks, our commutes, our routines. We stop for a coffee because the car needs 30 minutes at the supercharger.
Yeah.
We sit on the floor near a wall outlet at the airport because the phone is at 5%. If all of that friction is suddenly erased from human existence, what will we do with all that reclaimed time?
Thanks for tuning in to this episode. If you enjoyed our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and turn on the notification bell. See you guys.